Hey guys, this is a quick clip from my live stream number 156, and I'll put the link to that if you want to watch the whole thing in the description of this video, where we get into all the things about the digital future. I hope you enjoy it. I'm of the age too where, a few years later, you saw the internet explode. Okay, and that was another moment in time. The internet explodes, websites start coming up, companies start going online, .com boom, the whole thing, .com crash, the whole thing. All that stuff, through the mid 90s, all the way to the late 90s, early 2000s. I lived through that whole thing, experienced that whole thing, the ups and downs of that, like in real time. And then, of course, we got the social media boom a few years later. Like I've been on Twitter since 2009. I was one of the first type of people who got an account on Twitter. I didn't really use it that much, but I got one. Facebook as well, 07, 08. That's where I got joined Facebook. I've been on eBay since 2010, I believe. So all during that time, Flickr was another big one. I used to be on Flickr all the time, if you guys remember that. I was there through the, the music revolution, the Napster, the iPods, the digitalization of music and movies and content. I saw that too. I lived through that too. I was an adult in my 20s, mid to late 20s during that time. I was fully in on it. Believe me, I was all over my iPods, getting music, going on Napster, all that kind of stuff, right? Quite an amazing time. And so like what I'm getting at is that I've seen a lot. Okay. I've seen a lot of changes in the world in regards to pop culture, media, music, toys, collecting. My job, outside of, being on YouTube and having fun with you guys is graphic design. And I went to college for that. And I've been a professional designer since 2001. So I've been online working, since the late 90s when I was in school, all the way through since 2001 is when I started working in the profession. My background in that area is pretty deep. I don't talk about it a lot here, but I was the president of the Graphic Designers of Canada for 5.5 years. I mean, that's a whole career of mine that I don't really talk a lot about, but that's how I do my little graphics and stuff with my little design programs and all the work I do outside of these videos and stuff that you don't see. So I've been in the digital space, like basically working, creating websites and all sorts of stuff for years and years and years. I went more into print design early on. I had a moment where I could have went down the web development area, but I felt, more inclined towards the design side and print design and logos and branding and all that kind of stuff. So I really enjoy like what I see from Vivi with their new brand. Whether or not you like the heart or not, the fact that they have a brand platform and a message is extremely important. And I was really happy when they released that earlier this year, I think in January. That was extremely bullish for me as well. So all this stuff has happened this year, right? In 2023, all this big stuff. So I know that you guys have been through a lot too. You've seen a lot, especially in crypto is a whole other side of things, and digital assets and everything and digital collecting. We are in that stage now where that is now becoming relevant. It's actually, expanding, right? You're living through it right now. So if you could take the DeLorean back to 1995, if you weren't alive then, or you were little or young, you'd live through the .com, the internet explosion and, computers and home, you know what I mean? And like websites and all that stuff. You'd live through that time and you'd see that. And that time it took a decent amount of time for it to get the way it is today, right? I mean, Amazon took a long time for them to actually become big, So if you could take the DeLorean back then, you would feel very similar. You'd see what I see if you're not that of this age, like if you're not of the same age that I am. And that's okay, right? Because the people who of today who are like younger than me, who grew up in this time, they know way more than I do about the digital space. And they're the ones pushing it forward. Like you guys, if you're younger than me and you didn't grow up in that time, it's okay. You're pushing this to places that I can't even imagine, which is great. I'm just along for the ride, right? But you would see the same things that I've seen then. Like you'd see the parallels. You'd see how there's so much similarity going on, but it's completely different. but it's the same. You're right in the middle of it. I'm talking about those kind of times in past tense because they've already happened. So now you can go back and you can see it. You can pinpoint all of the moments throughout those years, with social media when in the 2000s, right? The early 2000s, you can pinpoint, you can watch that movie, The Social Network, about Facebook. They know now what happened and how it happened. And we look at it now with nostalgia and we look back at those things. We can see this year, this happened, this year, that happened. That's what pushed this forward. You're literally in the middle of this one right now with crypto and digital assets and currencies. Like, you're in the middle of it. We're all in it. But we don't know where it's going to go. We don't know how it's going to look on the other side. But at some point in 10, 20 years from now, they're going to make a movie about this moment and that moment and this moment and that moment and this time and that date and that event. And I really think a couple days ago was one of those moments, you guys, with that court decision. Don't you? And so how does that affect Vivi, right? Well, because, a lot of people, I'm not just thinking about just Vivi here, but how does that affect our collectibles? Well, to me, it's about confidence in the space. It's about acceptance of what's actually happening from the majority of people out there who always have looked at what we're doing as weird or scammy or, not legit. Those are the kind of moments that actually help people go to the next level. It happened with the .com boom as well. There was a time you would never, ever want to put your credit card on a website. That would be the thought of that was oh my God, they're going to steal all my info. They're going to steal everything I got, my identity, everything. And that happens, of course, especially those early days when security wasn't known as much. Hackers and all that stuff. And it still happens today, of course. But there was a time when people were afraid to go online. A really good movie, and this might sound kind of funny, and this is actually quite appropriate because I literally just watched this last night with the family just for fun. A really good movie, okay? And bear with me here. Have you seen the movie lately, You've Got Mail, with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan? It's that rom-com movie. It's that fun kind of rom-com movie where they're emailing each other and falling in love online. That movie is a really interesting movie because it's a time capsule of a period of time when the internet was starting to take off and people were communicating with each other online for the first time. And in the movie, they sprinkle in a lot of doubters. In fact, Meg Ryan's character, her boyfriend, was devoutly against the internet, and it's quite interesting to watch a movie from that time because it's just the way people thought of. And at that particular moment in time, Starbucks and Chapters and all these kind of companies were kind of coming around, and the internet was new, and people were communicating online in chat rooms together. And you should go back and watch the movies just strictly from that point of view, because you'll see how people felt at that moment. And if you watch it now, the same thing is happening, but with digital assets and the metaverses and the ARs and all that stuff. It's very eerily similar, you guys. So when I see stuff like this and I tell you about, my opinions, it comes from all of those years of me being alive, going through those times. And I'm just sharing with you how I feel about what I see. Now, I'm not trying to see everything only positives. There's so much different, stuff that could happen, that, we don't know what's going to happen. That's the thing. It's the unknown about it. But the adoption of digital assets and the way the world is going should be very clear to anybody who is watching this video, who's in this space with us.